Good tidings, fellow friends of the world. It's Zeklo, and welcome to a Don't Starve Together theory video, where we are trying to answer the question, who is the Fuelweaver? Now, there are two most likely candidates, those being the torch wielder and the staff wielder. These being the two newly introduced beings in the Don't Starve lore, and seemingly the rulers of the ancient civilization. Fitting choices for the ancient Fuelweaver, if you ask me. We'll be talking about the ancient Guardian later. So why are these two the most likely? Well, they're the newly introduced characters of importance in the Don't Starve lore, and like we've already established in my other video, Ancients to the Fuelweaver, which while dated, still applies. The ancients become the shadow monsters, and the Fuelweaver has a habit of spawning, or rather attracting, shadow monsters. Basically, calling out to their subjects. This becomes especially clear when they summon the channelers, saying, "Lend me your power one last time." Sure, it's possible that this may be referring to them, but that would be kinda strange given that the Fuelweaver's goal is to turn off the gateway. And now with the addition of the Bone Helmet, which allows nightmare creatures to come to you and make them passive, it seems like quite the strong claim. Anyway, there's evidence supporting both the torch wielder or the staff wielder being the Fuelweaver. So let's start with the Shadow Atrium quotes, namely Wendy and Maxwell's. Wendy states, "It beats with the sorrow to span the skies and plumb the darkest seas." Maxwell states, "A pulse of a malice and betrayal beats within." Both describe the item used to revive the ancient Fuelweaver in a state of negative emotions, specifically due to some sort of betrayal. In regard to the ancient rulers, we know that there was some sort of power shift between the two, having started on equal footing to one raised high while the other huddled close to the ground. Following this is the overtake of the shadows and the use of nightmare fuel in their stuff. And so, in this context, it seems the torch wielder would be the more likely, as the staff wielder takes control, leaving the torch wielder aside. Sounds like betrayal to me. However, we can look at this in another way. It is unlikely that the staff wielder had expected the complete and utter destruction of their people to occur through the use of nightmare fuel. Given that we see an eye at one point, we can assume that this entity has something to do with the origins of the fuel. Thus, it is possible that the staff wielder gained the knowledge through the use of this being. So when everything went wrong, it was considered a betrayal by them. To back this up, the Fuelweaver states, "I was wrong." I find this particular line incredibly difficult to apply to the torch wielder, who didn't seem to play a part in the change and the downfall of their empire. On the other hand, the quote, "My city in tatters," seems to suggest that the Fuelweaver was not aware of the city's destruction, which would fit the torch wielder's potential death due to the broken mask we see on the ground. Of course, we could say that this is simply them not fully accepting it yet, but that's a bit loose, and even then it could go either way. Now, arguably, the most important line is Metheus. Who is Metheus? This is going to be its own video, but since they're interconnected, I can't really do that. Now, before you go and say it's the name of the current puzzle, yada yada, yeah, I saw that comment. I read everything. Let me inform you, no. There's a reason to the name, and there is a reason for the Fuelweaver knowing it. We don't know much about this Metheus. We hear it from the Fuelweaver, and we are informed that Metheus has taken heed. And when is it that he takes heed? When you complete the puzzle. Yeah, I know. But specifically, when you place the necessary items into the ancient king's chest, in order to get the ancient cane. You know, the very same ancient cane held by that one ancient that sits on the throne? Yeah, that guy. This is important. Metheus takes heed when we acquire the ancient cane skin through the ancient king's chest. That action gains us their attention. But why? Are they the king? 'Cause then yeah, messing with their stuff might gain their attention. Are they the queen? 'Cause then yeah, messing with the king's stuff might gain their attention. Are they them? Etc. You get the point. Well, I don't have an answer. But, with this information, let's return to the topic at hand. The Fuelweaver says this name. If this is the staff wielder, aka the king, then saying their own name would be kinda odd. Their mind seems to be intact, being in proximity to the gate. It could go hand in hand with the curse their name. Is their name Metheus? That seems a bit strange, because then why not just say curse Metheus? Maybe that's giving too much plot information, but I look at the game how it is. So, if the staff wielder supposedly being the Fuelweaver is saying Metheus, it would have to be in the context of the queen, or some third element we have no knowledge of. Same thing if the torch wielder, aka the queen, is the Fuelweaver. There would be the same oddities, simply with a role reversal. It would have to be referring to the king. The final thought I want to discuss is about something I already started to implant into your brain in a different video. The possibility of the ancient throne becoming the nightmare throne, and how one could stay alive for long periods of time while on it. The main reason for this was due to a common theory that I personally never really liked. Maxwell knowing an ancient, the ancient guardian, before they were changed by the fuel. I had always been of the opinion that this was a diagnosis. If a doctor says someone broke their leg, it doesn't mean the doctor knew the person before they broke it. However, an open mind is necessary for this kind of thing, and so with this new knowledge, I decided to consider it. So this is what I came up with. The connection between the Ancient Guardian and the Ancient Fuelweaver is pretty apparent. You need the key in order to revive the Ancient Fuelweaver. Well, it just so happens we have two candidates. Coincidence? Perhaps. But consider this. The Queen dies. Dead, gone. The King, however, remains upon their throne, which eventually becomes the Nightmare Throne. And due to its ability to preserve the one on it, they live up until a certain magician shows up. That's your connection for Maxwell knowing the Ancient Guardian before they changed. Maxwell then frees them from the throne, getting trapped themselves. The king then probably dies, and then gets tossed back into the world, where they spend the rest of their life down in the ruins guarding the key that doomed their people, eventually succumbing to the altering properties of nightmare fuel. This would then, of course, make the Ancient Fuelweaver the queen, and Metheus them. Now, for a theory that works a bit too well. We figure out who all three are? Yeah, no, there's holes, of course. One, if the clockworks were made by the ancients and resemble the Ancient Guardian, how is that possible? Maybe the king made them? Maybe Wagstaff? Maybe that's the problem. We're spreading out too thin where all evidence just becomes lost. 2. For what reason is the Fuelweaver saying they were wrong? I still can't think of any possible reason the Queen would say that. They seem to be in the right, opposing the use of nightmare fuel. You get the point. It adds up in some sense, but falls short in others. Though I thought I'd share it anyway, because maybe it'll stimulate some of your own thoughts. So who do you think the Fuelweaver is? How about the Guardian? Metheus? I'd love to hear your theories down below. Anyway, that's going to wrap up this video, so thank you all for tuning in, and farewell!